In America today, there are over 300 million people. In 2012, about 15% of that population were without health insurance to properly cover them in the face of skyrocketing medical costs. It's almost impossible to talk about this situation, of course, without discussing healthcare reform. So let's talk about it. But not from here, in Washington, but from here, in a place like my hometown of Royal Oak, Michigan.
The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, took effect in 2014 in an attempt to remedy the lack of a universal healthcare system in the U.S. The number of Americans without health insurance was reduced by about 11 million citizens this past year because of the ACA. I talked to people from all across the board, from Royal Oak residents on the streets, to local business owners and ACA navigators, to PBS News anchor Haris Srinivasan and Congressman Sander Levin, to paint a picture of the repercussions this law has had on the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great for us. We haven't found any difficulties in it. The only thing is it got raised.
My brother does not have a job and is able to afford health care because of Obamacare.
It's a little difficult. I didn't think there'd be a penalty. I'm not happy about the penalty.
Higher cost, less coverage.
My experience is that it's not very affordable.
I think it's great. It allowed me, who doesn't have a lot of money, to have health care. And I was uncovered for many, many years, and I'm at the tender age of 53.
If anybody's trying to give people that can't afford health care, it's a good thing.
I'm covered. I got a card in my wallet, so I'm feeling pretty darn good.
Though I received a wide range of responses, the general consensus seems to be that the ACA has been mostly beneficial on the individual, especially since it covers people who were previously uninsured, including people who have pre-existing conditions or are under the age of 26.
For us personally, that was a real boon. Otherwise, we would have been without insurance for our two young adults in the family. So I'm grateful that they figured that out for us.
I'm grateful too. Yeah, I'll take it.
There were several million people under 26 who did not have health care and who began to receive it through their parents. So many people did not have access to preventive care. So there were lots of impacts on the individual lives of people.
If I take it to the real extreme, I could say it helped me to save my house. And I was absolutely embarrassed to live in a country where people didn't have insurance. As we know, there's lots of people who have come into very, very difficult times through medical costs, some to the point of losing their home or going bankrupt. How it affects our community, it keeps this neighborhood having Joni Sanborn still as a neighbor.
And I've met so many people who are thankful for now having health care. In a sense, as you talk to people, it's a bit unbelievable that we were the only industrial nation in the world which did not have anything like universal health care.
Unfortunately, in order to provide health care for everyone in the U.S., the cost has to go somewhere, and while there may be a variety of benefits for the individual, the expenses may then be deferred onto other individuals or employers, which is having damaging effects on businesses, which could in turn place dangerous implications back onto the individual.
With our company, we're finding that everybody's paying more money.
So as an employer, you have to make a call and say, do I try to cover this for my employee? Do I try to absorb the cost increase to the employee? And if I do, will they value it? And if I do, that means I'm not going to be able to give raises and I might not be able to be competitive in the marketplace. It means I might not be able to pay bonuses this year even though someone did a really good job. We're a human capital business. We have 5,700 employees. Our costs and therefore our assets are in our people that walk in and out of our door every day.
I don't think it's working out too well for a lot of guys that are making $15-20 an hour and they're paying $200 a week to keep their family insured. So I'm not a big fan of it.
We can't raise our prices to our customers. Our healthcare costs are going up. We're passing some of that along to the employer, deferring some to the employee.
You've asked me about whether there's been a learning curve. I would call it more of a learning cliff.
The problem with that is it's not sustainable.
And I think as a country, we've been trying to find our way up that cliff.
If I'm not investing in my employees and my business, I'm not able to grow. I have to retract. And if I'm not able to grow, I'm not able to retain talent, and it's a vicious cycle downward.
As you know, in Washington, it's an immensely controversial subject, and the Republican majority in the House has tried to repeal it or dramatically undermine it over 50 times.
That Obamacare was passed by exploiting the lack of information given to the American people.
So it's been 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I think we're making progress. I think people are wrapping their arms around it, and are seeing some benefits. It just hasn't been as smooth as one might imagine something like this would be. But it's a first. I mean, it's a huge undertaking.
Though there are certainly areas for improvement that still need to be addressed, for this community, the Affordable Care Act is a step forward.
I can't imagine that anybody should worry about whether they're going to go bankrupt or lose their home because of a medical situation. And I think they've turned that around for me, anyway.
It's one of those aspects of life that affects everybody. And since healthcare needs are universal, healthcare coverage should be universal.
You know, you just see people acting in a way that's fearful, and that can't be good for anything. It's not good for your work, your attitude, your family, you know, and if people are relieved of that fear that mental health or physical health or dental could cause them problems, then I think that they can be better people.
There are different impacts of the Affordable Care Act depending on which populations you serve. So if you have a dense urban core that is incredibly impoverished, you might see a bigger impact. Kind of depends on where you look and who you talk to. And I think that's also the case for most massive pieces of legislation, is that there is no uniform success or failure.
There was much controversy over Social Security, and there was much controversy over Medicare, but now the vast majority of seniors would never dream of wanting Medicare to go away.
We have to go back and revisit the assumptions around how do we make the Affordable Care Act, quote unquote, affordable.
The results of federal laws and actions can be seen everywhere and with everyone, in one way or another. It affects your neighbors, your family, your friends, and perhaps this is something from here we can keep in mind when we go back here.